We have our final panelist of this session, and her name is Jamie Maslyn Larson, who's a partner for West 8 in New York.
I really want to thank Charles for inviting me to speak at this amazing day and acknowledge the rest of some of our team members that are here today. Annette Wilkes with SiteWorks, Sheila Condon, Clark Condon, and Jeff Ross, who's the president of the Houston Botanic Garden, Nancy Abenshine, who's the chairman of the board of our organization. So, of course, this image has shown up again and again today, but this was also our first impression of Houston, its glittering skyline at the toe of the Bayou, or Bayou, sorry. And it's a place that was really built on the backbone of a philanthropic community with an amazing sense of culture and energy and medicine. But for many decades, there's been a growing group of advocates who have been asking for a world-class botanic garden. It's the 4th largest city, and it'll probably beat Chicago in the next survey census. So our job was to design a master plan for the first ever botanic garden. And as a landscape architect, this is a very humbling and honoring experience. And so what we really needed to understand, first of all, is how a botanic garden fits into this network, how we can make a unique botanic garden specifically for Houston. A little background on botanic gardens. Of course, they're always wonderful places to view plants. They're places to be enjoying the outdoors, but they are first and foremost places of scientific research and education for the public. They're also economic drivers. 70 million people attend botanic gardens in the United States in 2015, and that's expected to double by 2030. So these are a little bit of forces of nature in our city as well in terms of economic and visitation. And increasingly in our cities, they're becoming more important, especially in urban areas where not everybody has access to backyards, as places of community, of education for school children, and also places for special events. This is where you have your weddings, and this is where you have really your special moments in your life in botanic gardens more and more. And we already, of course, have amazing gardens here, botanic gardens also, and special gardens that are really celebrating the beauty of this Houston landscape. So it was important for us to know that we have a place within that, and we want to add to it. We don't want to compete with. And recognize, too, that this is a very special climate zone in the United States. So the plant diversity, not only here, is exciting for its native qualities, but also we can generate, excitement around plant communities that exist in this climate zone from all around the world. Everybody sort of gets a beautiful sensation about when they're in nature, but there are myths and experiences that are special to each culture and each community around the world. And Houston's a very diverse and growing in diversity. In fact, makeup of this audience today will very rapidly change in the next 20 years. And we really wanted to draw out cultures and communities and ideas from the wide range of people that are living here that aren't looking like me. Our first step was to, like everyone else, understand what the site was telling us. And we have a beautiful site. It's a golf course. It's an artificially created landscape, and it's 120 acres. It's a lease agreement from the city, a long-term lease agreement that was created to allow the Botanic Garden to come to this golf course. As you can see, it already had some botanic qualities, but it was far from being a botanic garden. We're in southeast Houston, so we're just outside the 610 loop on the Gulf Freeway. So just really off the mental map for a lot of Houstonians. But we're only 8 miles from downtown and just a 20-minute drive. And you can see that because of the flatness when you're down on the ground, you do not get the view of the skyline, but we are proximate to it, which is a great advantage. Now, when GLENEROOK was created in the 20s or so, it was made at a time when Houston was urbanizing very rapidly. And you can see here this is the first aerial that we had. You can see that it was pretty rural at the time the golf course was made. And then we do have water here, and this is the original meandering Sims Bayou that skirted the northern part of the site. Over time, the city, of course, urbanized to it, and so now it's completely surrounded by neighborhoods, mostly single-story, middle-class neighborhoods. You can see Broadway starting to grow towards Hobby Airport. And then in about the 80s, the Army Corps created the drainage channel that bifurcated the site. And luckily, our drainage channel is not concrete lined, so it has a softness to it that is very appreciated by us. And then we got very excited also because not only for the experience of having water near us, but also the opportunity to have bridges, which could bring a great sense of arrival to the garden. This is the original drainage channel, which unfortunately has been cut off from its hydrological connection, so now it's just fed by tidal action, and it's basically in a state of attrition, so we would like to heal that. The drainage channel has allowed the sort of split of the site into two. The first being what we call the island, because it's entirely wrapped by water. It's about 54 acres. And a second piece in the southern area that's connected and stitched with the neighborhoods beyond. This is our master plan. The project is entirely private, supported by private donations and foundations like the rest of all of you all have expressed today. And so it will be a multi-phase project, and right now we're just starting schematic design on a potential first phase. We came late in the game to conversations around returning back to the bayou, but this was definitely the first thing in our public meetings that people said they wanted at their botanic garden. And it's all the work that everybody did that preceded us that allowed people to have this image of the bayou in their minds and make it a kind of a priority for us in the Botanic Garden project. We also learned about the intensity and ferocity of the flooding and became humbled by it. As you might know, Westate is a company that was founded in Rotterdam in the Netherlands. We have a New York office, which is where I run. And so we're not unfamiliar with dealing with flooding and embraced it right away. The first drawing we did was the flood analysis on our site, looking at the intensity of the storm events, and realized that very quickly that a lot of that island site would have been wet and damaged after an intense flood event. So our first big move was to shape and sculpt the edge of the bayous and lift the kind of center of that island so that we create a protected zone for the collection gardens and buildings, but also make floodable gardens that are accessible and friendly to people. And so we were able to deliver right away on the promise to the community of sort of bringing engaging landscapes to the bayou edge, and then also for ourselves making sure that we have a garden that'll work for the next 100 years. And a part of that, too, is because this was a golf course site, it isn't like the greatest in terms of ecological narratives. Although there are great qualities on site, we want to expand that to the rich ecologies that are possible here. And we imagine that we'll be able to actually get out into the water of that sort of sleepy, meandering bayou as a part of the Botanic Garden experience, and then also have quieter areas that can sustain the sort of intense flooding now and again. So the bayou gardens actually form the kind of backbone to the garden experience, and it stitches and weaves all through the Botanic Garden and creates layered landscapes as well. And it's all accessible, and it's all, in our minds, a part of the garden. And it also creates a kind of a specialness that makes the island like a destination and kind of a, you get excited about thinking about it, going there. So the collection gardens are obviously like the central point of the Botanic Garden experience, and they are occurring throughout the rest of the site. And their first move was really to push and consolidate the collection gardens onto that island, to make that the first place of your experience of the wow of the collection gardens. Part of the joy will be getting out over the water, and that symbolic entry onto the island is an opportunity we really felt we need to take advantage of. Then it came time to sort of figure out, well, how are we going to, because we had such a strong backbone of the ecology, how is this interface going to work with the collection gardens? How will we, make sure that that is a really rich and vibrant experience? And we looked back to a lot of the history of gardens, of course, through traditional garden design, and we love this idea of this vivid sense of being in the kind of paradise and being protected from the wild, the wilderness of the landscape. This idea of the hortus conclusus is really a cultural phenomenon that exists through a lot of different cultures, but also through different periods of time. Our project started in May and ended in October, so we got to experience the worst, hottest, humid, intense summer events. Every time we came here, it rained, and it was 95 degrees. So we drove the design around making people feel comfortable here in the summer months. And we love this image because, what is it really showing? It's sort of this giant tree and some houses tucked away in a street, and this is, it's just screaming that we value shade here. So we, of course, looked at garden traditions, and we started to love this notion of the traditional garden colonnade and the idea of having a datum and a place from which you could view gardens in comfort, but also be invited into these gardens. So the colonnade became an organizing structure for the Houston Botanic Garden. And this isn't like a black and white world. These worlds between the wild and the cultivated gardens do weave in and out. And so the colonnades become a framework to experience the gardens. They become places of program. They transform into buildings so that we have cafes and event spaces along the way. And then, of course, we had already great trees on the ground, but we wanted to amplify and create the next succession of trees for the future. So we looked at what's already successful here, and the Rice University campus is a great model of how you can plant trees and how those trees can lead the way in terms of where the future of building and site organization can go. So our ideal would be to plant and overplant and create the framework for the future growth of the Botanic Garden, because this will be built in phases. And of course, we needed a wow. So we really wanted to say the trees are the most important thing here, so we created a really iconic bridge. So now we're in the moment of thinking about how we're going to build this. And this is a project of ours in New York City called Governor's Island. This was an image that we did in the master plan phase, and anytime we'd show it, I'm sure the other landscape architects have this experience too, where people in the community would say, by the time that exists, I'll be dead, Okay, but we're used to thinking in, 50-year increments, so this isn't a problem for us to imagine how we'll get there. And 5 years after we did that image, we built 30 acres of public park on Governor's Island. We're about to open another 10 acres of park this summer. And this is what that landscape looked like right after it opened. The trees are really tiny, but we do have the opportunity to create amazing sensations of botanic experience and qualities. We know that we'll also have to supplement the Houston Botanic Garden with programming to really engage and create audiences here and to create connections to the Houston network. So I'd like to say that it's really also interesting as a landscape architect to build a botanic garden from scratch in a contemporary time. And Houston is the ultra-contemporary city. So we were very interested in how the Botanic Garden can become a part, because of its scientific and education mission, we think that it can become a part of a deeper dialogue over time that Charles and everybody who started this conference today can continue to grow and cultivate, the identity of Houston as a green city for many, many years to come. Thank you.